Bonjour, mes amis, and welcome back to Decoding Dynasty. Today we're heading to the dazzling, slightly tipsy, and totally fabulous world of late 19th century Paris. Think can-can dancers, absinthe, and some seriously groundbreaking art. And our guide through this bohemian wonderland, the one and only Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. This guy wasn't just any artist. He was a total rock star of the Belle Époque, capturing the sassy spirit of the time in his amazing prints, posters, and paintings, especially his iconic portrayals of the women who lit up Montmartre. Seriously, his art was ahead of its time. But here's where our genetic magnifying glass comes in. Toulouse-Lautrec's life story has a fascinating twist, a secret hidden in his bones, all thanks to a rare genetic quirk. Today, we're diving into Pycnodysostosis, a condition so linked to our artistic genius that it's practically got his name on it. Toulouse-Lautrec disease. This condition played a huge role in his short stature and likely shaped how he saw and painted the world. So, buckle up, art lovers and gene geeks. We're about to explore the genetic code behind the artistic brilliance of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, uncovering the skeletal secrets that contributed to his unique vision. Get ready for a dose of art history with a side of DNA. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty of what makes Toulouse-Lautrec disease tick at the genetic level. This condition, also known as Pycnodysostosis, isn't caused by some random event. It's written right there in the DNA, passed down through the generations. The key player in this genetic story is a gene called CTSK. Now, CTSK might not sound as glamorous as a Parisian cabaret, but it's absolutely crucial for building and maintaining healthy bones. This gene holds the instructions for making an enzyme called cathepsin K. Think of cathepsin K as the bone's personal sculptor, specifically working within cells called osteoclasts. These osteoclasts are the little demolition and remodeling experts of our skeletal system, constantly breaking down old bone tissue so new strong bone can take its place. Cathepsin K is their primary tool for carving away the old stuff, especially the protein framework of bone, which is mainly collagen. Now here's the genetic catch. Pycnodysostosis is what we call an autosomal recessive disorder. Autosomal just means the gene isn't on the sex chromosomes, X or Y, but on one of the other 22 pairs of chromosomes we all have. Recessive is the important bit here. It means that for someone to actually have pycnodysostosis, they need to inherit two faulty copies of the CTSK gene, one from each parent. And if they only get one faulty copy and one working copy, they become a carrier. They won't have the condition themselves, but they carry the potential to pass the faulty gene on to their kids. Where exactly is this CTSK gene hanging out in our genetic blueprint? You can find it located on the long arm, that's the Q arm, of chromosome 1, at a specific spot labeled 1q21. This address tells geneticists exactly where to look for this important gene. The research also points out a significant factor in rare recessive conditions like pycnodysostosis, consanguinity, or when parents are closely related, like cousins. In these cases, there's a higher chance they both carry the same faulty gene, dramatically increasing the odds of their child inheriting two copies and therefore developing the condition. In fact, around 30% of pycnodysostosis cases have been linked to consanguineous relationships. So, in the case of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, it's highly likely he inherited two mutated versions of his CTSK gene, one from each of his parents. These mutations, which can be various types of errors in the genetic code, all lead to the same fundamental problem. His body couldn't produce enough functional cathepsin K. Without this key enzyme working properly in his osteoclasts, the normal bone remodeling process was severely disrupted, leading to the dense but brittle bones and other skeletal features characteristic of what we now know as Toulouse-Lautrec disease. Now that we've peeked into the genetic blueprint of Pycnodysostosis, let's talk about what this condition actually looks like in the real world. What were the physical characteristics that likely defined Toulouse-Lautrec and are hallmarks of this rare bone disorder? One of the most noticeable features is short stature. This isn't just being a little shorter than average. Individuals with pycnodysostosis experience significant shortness, often apparent right from birth, with their growth rate slowing down even more in those crucial first few years. This was, of course, a defining physical trait of Toulouse-Lautrec. Here's a bit of a paradox. While their bones tend to be denser than normal, a condition called osteosclerosis, they are also incredibly brittle. This increased density doesn't translate to strength. Instead, it makes the bones prone to fractures, often from minor bumps, falls, or everyday activities. Sadly, Toulouse-Lautrec experienced numerous fractures throughout his life, likely due to this bone fragility. The condition also often comes with distinctive craniofacial features. Think of a skull where the seams between the bones, the cranial sutures, remain separated for longer than usual, and the soft spots on a baby's head, the fontanelles, take their sweet time to close. There can also be frontal bossing, where the forehead juts out a bit, and a wider than typical angle to the lower jaw, known as an obtuse mandibular angle. Interestingly, doctors often describe a bird-like appearance to the face, often due to a smaller lower jaw, micrognathia, and a more prominent upper face. Moving down, pycnodysostosis can also affect the teeth and nails. You might see delayed eruption of teeth, meaning they come in later than expected, and enamel hypoplasia, where the outer protective layer of the teeth is thin or doesn't form properly. Even the nails on fingers and toes can be affected, often appearing malformed or unusual, what doctors call dysplastic. Looking at the limbs, there are often subtle but characteristic changes. The outer ends of the collarbones, the acromial ends, might be underdeveloped or oddly shaped, dysplastic. And individuals with pycnodysostosis often have short and broad hands and feet. Toulouse-Lautrec's famously shorter limbs were a key physical attribute consistent with this aspect of the condition. Interestingly, there are some other health issues that can sometimes pop up in individuals with pycnodysostosis. Some might experience problems with their upper airway, leading to breathing difficulties or even sleep apnea. However, it's important to note that despite all these physical quirks, cognitive and social development are usually completely normal in people with this condition. Their brains function just like anyone else's. So when we look at the life and physical characteristics of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, it's highly probable that many of these telltale signs of pycnodysostosis, his short stature, his history of frequent fractures, and likely some of his distinctive facial and limb features were all part of the spectrum of this rare genetic bone disorder. We've talked about the faulty gene and the physical outcomes, but what's actually going wrong inside the cells and on a molecular level in someone with pycnodysostosis? It all comes back to that crucial enzyme, cathepsin K, and its role in bone remodeling. Remember those bone remodeling experts, the osteoclasts? Well, cathepsin K is their primary tool for breaking down the protein part of old bone, mainly a tough substance called type 1 collagen. In pycnodysostosis, it's because of the mutations in the CTSK gene, the osteoclasts either have very little or no functional cathepsin K. Now here's the key. These osteoclasts can still do the first part of their job. They can dissolve the mineral content of the bone. But without working cathepsin K, they hit a roadblock when it comes to breaking down the organic protein matrix, that collagen framework. The result? Old, dense bone that hasn't been properly broken down starts to accumulate. This buildup of undigested collagen contributes directly to the increased bone density we see in pycnodysostosis. Interestingly, cathepsin K isn't just hanging out in osteoclasts. It's also found in other cells like fibroblasts, which are important for connective tissue. In these fibroblasts, cathepsin K plays a role in breaking down collagen that the cells have engulfed. Studies on individuals with pycnodysostosis have shown that their fibroblasts also accumulate undigested collagen in little compartments called lysosomes. This suggests that the impaired collagen degradation pathways aren't limited to just bone cells. It's a more widespread issue. But the story doesn't end with just the inability to break down bone. The lack of functional cathepsin K also seems to mess with the life cycle of the osteoclasts themselves. In normal bone remodeling, osteoclasts have a lifespan. They do their job, and then they undergo programmed cell death, called apoptosis, or they become inactive, senescent. However, In Pycnodysostosis, the faulty cathepsin K seems to lead to reduced apoptosis and senescence in these osteoclasts. This means that more osteoclasts stick around for longer, but they're still not doing their job of breaking down bone properly. This increase in the number of dysfunctional osteoclasts further contributes to the abnormal bone remodeling. This prolonged life of the osteoclasts has even been linked to decreased levels of certain cell cycle regulators, like P19, P53, and P21, which normally help control cell growth and death. So to sum it up on a cellular and molecular level, the mutations in the CTSK gene in Pycnodysostosis essentially throw a wrench in the bone's natural recycling system. The lack of working cathepsin K cripples the osteoclast's ability to break down old bone, leading to dense but brittle bones. This enzyme deficiency even has effects in other cell types involved in collagen processing and seems to disrupt the normal turnover of the bone remodeling cells themselves. It's a cascade of microscopic events that ultimately leads to the very visible characteristics of Toulouse-Lautrec disease. So, how is Pycnodysostosis actually diagnosed today? And how did doctors in Toulouse-Lautrec's time even begin to understand what might be affecting him? Furthermore, what can be done to help individuals living with this condition today? In modern medicine, diagnosing Pycnodysostosis typically involves a combination of looking at the clinical features, analyzing radiological findings, and confirming with genetic testing. Doctors will look for those telltale signs we discussed earlier: the short stature, a history of frequent fractures, and those distinctive facial features. X-rays revealing generalized osteosclerosis, open fontanelles, and an obtuse mandibular angle are also strong indicators. The definitive diagnosis, however, comes from identifying those biallelic pathogenic mutations in the CTSK gene through genetic testing. Careful consideration of other similar conditions is also crucial for accurate diagnosis. Now, stepping back to the time of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, 1864 to 1901, it's important to remember that pycnodysostosis wasn't formally described until the 1960s. So, during his lifetime, his condition was likely a medical enigma, though his physical characteristics would have been apparent. The retrospective diagnosis in the latter half of the 20th century linked his unique presentation to this specific genetic disorder, bringing significant attention to it. Turning to treatment and management of pycnodysostosis today, it's important to understand that there is currently no cure for the underlying genetic condition. Instead, management focuses on addressing the various symptoms and preventing complications. A multidisciplinary approach involving specialists like endocrinologists, orthopedic surgeons, dentists, and craniofacial surgeons is crucial for comprehensive care. One of the major challenges is fracture management. Fractures are common and often require surgical intervention. However, the dense and brittle nature of the bones can make internal fixation challenging, with a higher risk of delayed healing or non-union. Orthopedic surgeons need to be prepared for this, sometimes using specialized techniques like intramedullary fixation, which has shown lower refracture rates in some studies. Preventing fractures by advising patients to avoid high-impact activities is also important. Given the consistent short stature, growth hormone therapy may be considered in some patients, particularly children with evidence of growth hormone deficiency. Studies have shown that it can sometimes improve growth velocity and final height. Respiratory and sleep issues, such as sleep apnea, need to be monitored and managed, potentially with non-invasive ventilation. Dental care is also crucial, as individuals with pycnodysostosis can have dental abnormalities and are at a higher risk of complications like osteomyelitis after dental procedures. Conservative, atraumatic approaches are often recommended. Long-term multidisciplinary follow-up is essential to monitor for potential complications, assess growth, manage fractures, and address any dental or respiratory issues that may arise. Genetic counseling is also important for affected individuals and their families to understand the inheritance pattern and risks for future generations. So, while Toulouse-Lautrec lived in a time without a diagnosis or specific treatments for his condition, Individuals today benefit from a greater understanding of pycnodysostosis and a multidisciplinary approach to manage its various manifestations and improve their quality of life. And so we reach the end of another fascinating journey on Decoding Dynasty. Today we've explored the life and legacy of the brilliant artist Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec through the revealing lens of genetics. We've uncovered the genetic basis of pycnodysostosis, the rare autosomal recessive bone disorder caused by mutations in the CTSK gene, and how this condition likely shaped Toulouse-Lautrec's short stature, bone fragility, and distinctive physical features. The very genes he inherited played a significant role in his life experiences and perhaps even influenced his unique artistic perspective. It's remarkable to consider how a condition that remained formally undefined until well after his death is now so intrinsically linked to his name, Toulouse-Lautrec disease. His life story serves as a powerful reminder of how genetic predispositions can profoundly impact an individual's journey, presenting both immense challenges and, in his case, contributing to an extraordinary artistic vision that captured the vibrant spirit of an era. While Toulouse-Lautrec lived in a time without understanding or specific treatments for pycnodysostosis, modern science has illuminated the genetic and molecular pathways involved, leading to better diagnosis and multidisciplinary management for those living with this condition today. Thank you for joining me as we decoded the genetic threads in the life of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. If you found this episode insightful, please like, subscribe, and share it with fellow art enthusiasts and genetic history buffs. What artistic or historical puzzle shall we unravel next through the power of genetics? Stay tuned to The Geneticist to find out.